Hello! I meant to make this video for last year's Halloween. You could see how dusty this box is. I completely ran out of ideas and so I ended up doing something different. But this year I really want to finish doing a spooky makeover on this vintage set of wooden coasters. So buckle up, it's time to start this from the beginning. Let's get into it! This is what the coaster box looked like when I first bought it. I found it at a vintage shop for about $4. My guess is it's from the 1970s or possibly the early 80s, the height of fashion back then, I'm sure. To give it credit, it is solidly built, and these things were made to last back in the day, but it's looking very dated, and inside each coaster drawer is a round circle of cork, which is where you'd put your glass on, I guess, and I don't even want to know what's living in that cork. So much bacteria and filth, although it does look quite clean, but I need to do something about that. That cork has to go. As does the brown colour wood, because it looks really dated and quite depressing, I think. I just wanted to make it look a bit more exciting. I've actually done a makeover on one of these coaster box sets before. I turned it into a galaxy, and each coaster is a different planet in our solar system. I'll link that video at the end of this one so you can watch it too if you like, but let's get making over this new coaster set that I have. The first task is to dig out all of the cork, because that really needs to go, and I have a set of wax carving tools that I picked up from some tool shop on an impulse buy, but they have some really good scraping tools on here, and these are perfect for scraping out that cork. One of these also has a nail poking through, so I'll have to deal with that at some point too, but it's time to scrape out that cork, a messy but very satisfying job. This set was easier to scrape out than the previous Planets one that I did. That was in a much worse condition than this box. It has nice wood underneath, and it was reminding me of houses where people would put lino down over the top of beautiful wooden floors. Sacrilege, I say! I did my best to scrape off as much glue as possible, but you can see there's still quite a lot on there, so sanding will be required, but I have another 7 coasters to scrape out first. Boom! Done! And now it's time to sand off all that glue, which was also done off camera, but now they're pretty smooth and it's time to paint them. I've still got a nail there. I guess I'll fix that as I go along. I'm not really sure what to do with that yet. I painted everything black using this Langridge black decorative primer, and this leads me back into a year later with the painted black box, but I had absolutely no idea what to put into the black circles, and so I just kind of gave up on it last year, but I knew inspiration would strike me eventually, and I have come up with an idea for this Halloween. It's better late than never. And 2 of them are stuck together, of course. There we go. And then I realised there was still one more stuck in the box, and after a bit of struggle I managed to get that loose as well. I'm off to a great start here. I finally got that drawer out, and now for my idea. When I was in Kmart recently, they had some Halloween stuff out on display, and I found a box of wooden Halloween decorations. I'll bring them over here. I was wondering, would these actually fit into the circles? So I'm about to find out, because I had no idea. I didn't measure this beforehand. I also bought these Halloween sequin shapes. I wasn't sure if I was going to use these yet. I'll deal with those later. Let's take a look at these decorations and see if they'll fit. And look at this, I could not have measured that better myself. That jack-o'-lantern pumpkin fits in there perfectly. Although unfortunately not all of them were quite as good. There were 3 out of the 9 that were not going to fit, the witch's hat being one of them, but I thought I might be able to sand it down a bit so it will fit. The ghost goes in there really nicely. But sadly the cat was not going to fit in there without some serious cutting. Let's take a look at the skull, and that one fits in there perfectly too, yay! I was really surprised at how well most of these were going in. The bat is just a tiny bit too wide, so I could probably sand that one down as well. And the other 3 designs left in the box also fit nicely, so I was really happy about that. It meant I could use these wooden designs and not have to paint everything from scratch into the circles, which is what I did with the planets, and I was feeling far too lazy for that this time around. I had 2 designs left and 1 circle to fill. Unfortunately, both of these will not fit easily, the cat or the hat. I decided on the hat because I figured that one would be easier to sand down. But I can't not have the cat somewhere on this box. I mean, it's so cute, and you know me, I love my cats. So I came up with an idea for that. It's going to go on the outside of the box. on the back panel because there's plenty of room and that's going to fit on there easily. I managed to sand the hat and the bat to fit into the circles, and they worked out okay. They don't look too wobbly. I just had to take the tips off the bat wings. And now it's time for the really difficult decision as to how to decorate these. I really wanted to use some glitter, but do I put glitter on the decorations or in the background? I was overthinking this way too much and getting myself quite stressed out. I just needed to make a decision and stick with it. I'd found some pots of glitter on sale. I didn't have very much orange, but I found all sorts of other colours, and I thought I would use a different colour for each coaster, and I did change my mind on the order of these as well. I need to use that red one somewhere. I also want to add glitter on the cat to tie the whole thing together, and I had some colour changing silvery glitter which I thought would be perfect for the outside of the box. Alright Becky, it is time to make a decision, and I decided to go for painting the decorations black, and the glitter will go in the background area. I'd be interested to know in the comments which way you would have chosen to do this, because the other option was to put the glitter on the decorations themselves and just leave the rest of the circle black. I think either way would have worked, but of course I had to choose the messier option, as we'll see in a little while, although it was quite easy to paint these little pieces. And I only need to paint one side because I'm going to glue these down onto the coasters and you won't see the backs of them. This ended up being quite a fun project. I really enjoyed doing this. Last year I just could not think of 8 designs to put in the coasters themselves. I had in my mind that they had to be completely round, but I could have just painted little designs like this. But of course I did not get that inspiration until I saw the wooden decorations. But that's okay, it's not always possible for me to come up with a design idea straight away. Sometimes I just need to leave things and come back to them later. Usually inspiration will strike at the most random of times, like walking around the shops minding my own business. So once all the paint had dried, it was time to glue everything on. I was going to have the cat in the centre, but I decided it needed to be standing on the bottom of the box. So of course I made a mess straight away, but this art glitter glue stuff dries clear anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. I think it's just a fancy PVA glue, so any PVA or wood glue would be fine for this project. And of course I stuck the first 2 in upside down because I completely forgot about the drawer knobs, so I changed those around before they could stick completely, and after a few hours everything had dried completely solid. Because I was going to add glitter in later, I wasn't so worried about the glue showing on the background areas where I had made my mistakes. But honestly, I can't do anything without making an enormous mess. And this, it turns out, was not even the messiest part of this whole project. That bit's coming up next. Because Becky and loose glitter is probably not a good combination. But I finished gluing everything into place, and now it's time for the fun part, getting that glitter on. So basically I just dumped a whole bunch of glue wherever I wanted the glitter to go, making sure to push it into every nook and cranny, and then I just dumped it on top, not worrying too much about staying neat. Just one coaster had created a huge mess, so I decided to shake off all the excess glitter after I had finished all of the coasters together. Some of the finer details were a little difficult and I managed to get glue in places I didn't want it, so I did my best to wipe off as much as possible. This glitter is from that paint pouring kit I showed a few weeks ago. I thought the lighter blue would show up better than the darker blue that I was originally going to use. I was very liberal with the glitter, and you can see me putting it to one side so I can shake it off later, because I did try to save most of the excess glitter and put it back in the pots. I don't like to waste products, and I also don't want to pour glitter down a sink, because that's really bad for the environment. I thought I would use orange and gold on the pumpkin. I was regretting this decision already. The orange glitter was nowhere near as sparkly as the gold, and it just looked really funny, so I am going to deal with that a bit later, but I thought I would work on the others. The Trick or Treat was the hardest one to glue, because it had so many gaps to fill in between all of the letters. But I did use a fine nozzle on the end of the glue, which you can see there, which helped to get into the tiny areas. Now this bright yellow glitter, I think it reacted with the glue because it changed colour a bit once it had dried, and it's turned a lot greener. We'll see this a bit later in the video. I think some of the glitter colours have ended up looking better than others, and the best pots I had have little shakers on them, you can see here, so it was much easier pouring out a smaller amount of glitter and aiming it properly so it didn't get all over the cardboard in the background here. I recommend not doing this straight onto a desk because you'll be stuck with glitter for weeks or months later. But here I was able to contain most of the glitter on the cardboard, and it made cleanup quite a lot easier. I was generous with the glue because I wanted it to really stick on there and not have any of the background showing through. I wanted that to be solid glitter. I'm glad I chose to do it this way because I think the glitter circles are better. It makes the circle stand out from the rest of the coaster, with the Halloween design being plain black, as we'll see when I brush it all off. But I decided this pumpkin one needed to be all gold, so I'm going over it a little bit with some glue, and I just want to cover as much orange glitter as I can. I shook out the excess so I didn't have as much on there. I just think the gold's shinier and it ended up looking prettier. I also decided to do the same thing for the cat, so I wanted to fill this entire area with glue, and I'm going to pour glitter onto the entire back of the box. I was thinking, is it going to be too much? But I'm really glad I decided to be bold with this, because this silvery chameleon glitter looks so great on the box. But this is everything so far, and I needed to brush off that excess glitter. And you can see how Trick or Treat is turning green. After I cleaned everything up, here are all of my glittery coasters, and the box as well. That Trick or Treat one has definitely taken on a greenish tinge. It's really weird. But too late now. Anyway, in order to seal all of this glitter in properly, because I know it's just going to fall off over time, I need to do one more step, and that's to pour on some epoxy resin over the top of each design. I'm using some from Let's Resin, and I'll make up a 1-to-1 ratio mix of epoxy A and B. Equal amounts from both bottles, and thoroughly mixed up so it will actually set. I made 100 ml of resin, 50 ml of A and B each, mixed up thoroughly for quite a long time. I did that off camera just because it took ages, and now I'm just going to pour it straight on, starting the pour in the middle and letting that resin slowly move out, because it's really easy to pour too much in and then it overflows. It's better to pour in a little bit at a time and just let it ease out to the edges. I'm also wearing gloves so I don't get it on my hands, and I'm wearing a mask as well because this stuff stinks and you really don't want to be breathing it in. It's pretty toxic. But I've used the Let's Resin quite a few times and it's been working really well. It takes about a day to cure and it dries nice and clear, although there are sometimes a few air bubbles. But most of them tend to come out on their own. I'll link them in the description below, because their products are good quality and it's definitely a consideration if you're looking around for some epoxy resin. Resin is always so horribly expensive, it's really worth shopping around to see what you can find. I'll just speed this up a bit because it took me ages to pour it all, and I think I forgot to film some of it. But you get the idea from this. I'm basically just pouring resin over the top of the wooden part and then letting it run over the glitter so I didn't get glitter everywhere. Some of them have worked out better than others, and I was really praying that I had enough resin to cover everything. I did the box last, and I had just enough resin, a little bit left over, so I ended up doing something with that as well, because I'm not going to throw out expensive resin. I had plenty of other silicone molds which I can pour it in, and I was using a clean popsicle stick just to make sure all of the resin was nice and neat and had gone right to the edges. And now all of this needs to cure for 24 hours. The good news is the resin set perfectly, but annoyingly on some of them the glitter lifted and so it's made a bit of a mess over the top of them, in particular the ghost and this skull. It's not the end of the world, but they're just not as perfect as I would have liked. The spider has a lovely big air bubble which did not come out. I really like the pink glitter otherwise. I just didn't notice that one particular air bubble. This ghost is looking a bit funny in places as well. That was the first one I did and the glue isn't very neat. The hat, I actually drew a little silver buckle on it just to break it up a little bit. And it's looking okay. There are a few little air bubbles there. I think this bat has turned out really well. Once again, a tiny bit of glitter has dispersed over the wing, but it's okay otherwise. I'm so glad I put a second layer of gold on the pumpkin one. You can see there's a bit of green in there, and I think that's from the orange glitter where it's reacted. But otherwise I really like the jack-o'-lantern. Although I think I overfilled that one with resin a bit. And this Trick or Treat is looking pretty good as well, although it changes from yellow to green completely when I move it around. I wasn't expecting that, I thought it was just yellow. Oh well, that's no problem really. And last up is the box. I think this has turned out really well. I love the shimmery glitter and the resin on top. It makes everything stand out so well. And as for the leftover resin, I made a couple of little kangaroos. I just made one with the clear resin here, but I also wanted to use up all of the glitter that had mixed together, so I have this much bigger one. It's a glitteroo, and all of that leftover glitter is now contained in resin and won't be going into our waterways. It's a mix of all of the colours, so it's a bit of a mess, but I think it's quite cool otherwise, and we'll just hop that over there, because I have to finish this box. And I didn't notice, but some of the resin actually seeped through a crack in the box, and so it's all completely dried down there. That's really annoying. I'm going to have to pick that piece of resin off. And of course I took some of the paint off with it, so I was going to have to touch that up. I was also thinking about the rest of the box, and am I going to do any more decorations on the outside? I definitely wanted to add some silver details to the top. And I did consider using some of those confetti things that I bought, but in the end I decided they just looked a bit tacky and I'm not going to use them for this project. I was wishing I had some silver stickers, then I remembered that I have a Cricut machine and I can cut my own. I found a skull design that I liked, and I'm cutting some out on the silvery vinyl, which changes colours in the light. I had been wondering if I'd made a mistake buying the Cricut machine because I haven't really used it that much, but it worked so well for this project. I'm really glad I had it. It took a little while for the machine to cut everything out because they are quite intricate, but once it was done, I had 4 skulls. I decided to print a couple of extra ones just in case I made a mistake, and here they are, shining in the light. You can see that rainbow reflection on the silver vinyl. So to finish off this box, I want a couple of these skull stickers, and I'm also going to decorate the filigree bits with a silver paint pen. I did this part off camera because I had to hold this right up to my eyes so I could see the detail properly, and my head kept getting in the way of the camera. But here's what it looks like after I'd finished that, and I decided now was the time to paint gloss over all of the matte parts of the box, just so everything looks a lot shinier, and it will protect that paint. I'm using acrylic gloss varnish. This one's by Jo Sonia, and I'll just paint everything off camera. It's much easier to do that. Plus I need to pick these stickers off. And wasn't that a time-consuming task? Because of course I had to choose something that's got a lot of tiny details. I'll show you what I did on this other sticker so you can have an idea of how fiddly it is. This is a process called weeding, where you have to pull off all of the bits of stickers that you don't want on the final design, and I found using my fingers for the edge of it was much easier. So I'm going to pull off this main part so we get the general shape of the skull, and then I'm using this little pointy hook tool to weed out the rest of it. This tool might even be called a weeder, and this process is simultaneously frustrating yet therapeutic. It's very hard to explain. It took me ages to get the hook going, but once I'd figured it out, I got better at it. But every single tiny little piece of flower had to be picked out, and it just took ages and ages. But I of course wanted the fancy floral design, so I'm just going to have to pay the price and spend a whole bunch of time weeding out all the tiny bits of sticker. I just stuck them on a bit of cardboard and chucked them in the bin after. There was no way I was going to try and save all those tiny bits of shiny sticker. It was worth faffing about though. They look really great. But wait, there's more to do, because now I have to transfer these stickers onto the box, and the best way to do that is with some sticky transfer tape. This is the Cricut brand. I also have some Kmart stuff, which was much cheaper, but I'll use up this piece first. So the next step is to peel off the transfer tape and then stick it on top of the design, so the whole lot can be lifted off and then transferred onto the other surface. Oh my gosh, there's so much mucking around with this. The worst part is trying to get the sticker to stick to the transfer tape. I could not get it to work for so long. I was using this tool to begin with, and it worked okay, but I found a better tool afterwards. Anything flat and spatula shaped will work though eventually. But you'll see my first attempt here was completely useless, and none of the sticker was picked up by the transfer tape. Oh, it was so maddening. So I grabbed out the other spatula tool and I'm pushing down hard to get that sticker to adhere to the transfer tape. It actually worked in the end. You can see it starting to come off, although there's still areas where it was stubbornly clinging on, and I had to keep rubbing it to make sure I got the whole design. That little bit there was driving me insane. There is a reason I do voiceovers after the event, because I was swearing a whole lot when I was doing this, and I would have got myself demonetized very quickly. But finally I got this stupid thing off in one piece, and now I need to get this onto the coaster box. It's basically the same thing in reverse. I put the transfer tape onto it, and then I need to rub the vinyl part onto the box. This actually worked a lot more easily. It let go of the transfer sticker much more than it would actually grip in the first place. And I actually had the right measurements because I'd measured it out previously to calculate how large the skull should be. And here we go. That is a very satisfying peel. It all came off, and look at that. It looks so awesome. And then I had to do it all over again a second time for the other skull. This one went a little bit more smoothly because I knew what I was doing by then. And even though it was quite frustrating, I'm really glad I spent the time to cut out these skulls because they're the perfect decoration for this box. And I actually made something on my Cricut machine. I'm quite proud of these. Here's a second satisfying peel, and that's both of the stickers on. I also printed out a rose vinyl sticker for my floral sketchbook, which I showed in a video recently. It looks great on the front. But here's a reminder as to what the coasters looked like when I first started out. Groovy retro brown, very dated looking, and with bacteria-laden cork. And here's its transformation into a spooky Halloween collection. I'm so glad I found those wooden decorations. They were just perfect for this. Here's a closer look at some of the details. So I painted everything with gloss. The drawers themselves don't line up very well, and they go out of order very quickly. I painted the drawer knob silver as well, just to make it look a little more interesting. I haven't actually done a lot to the outside of the box. I wanted to keep it fairly simple, but that's because I have these skull designs on the side, and I've managed to scratch one side of the box, so I'm going to have to touch this up off camera. The other side is looking fine though. And my favourite part is the back of the box. That rainbow glitter looks fantastic, and I really like the cat decoration. The drawers are a little bit difficult to pull out just because they do tend to stick to each other, but I think the glitter's really fun, and glitter always looks really great under resin. I have scratched the resin in a few places though, because I poured a bit too much in and they're scraping against each other. That's so annoying. I also have rogue glitter everywhere stuck in the resin, so that's there forever. And overall, this set has not been as successful as the previous one I did with the planets. That one is still my absolute favourite. But I am happy I was finally able to finish this project because I'd been looking at this for so long, and it was nice to finally have an idea and carry it out to the end. Flaws and all. I guess it just means it's a one-of-a-kind piece, it's not mass-produced, and any flaws just add to the character of it. Here are the two boxes side by side. I'm starting to get a little collection of these, and I have to say these are really fun to decorate. And it's nice to fix up those ugly old boxes that really aren't worth anything, especially with all that nasty cork inside them. But guess what? I have another one! I found a third box at another vintage store, and I'm thinking that this one could be a Christmas theme. Let me know if I should do that. Whether it's this Christmas or next Christmas, I'm not sure yet, but I do have a couple of ideas possibly for this. I have got bits of sticker all over my hands there. It had gone everywhere. But that's it for this makeover. I hope you enjoyed watching this, and if you did, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. You might also want to click the subscribe button for more videos. If you wanted to see the other planet box makeover, I'll put that video up here, and I'm sure I've got another Halloween video on this side. Speaking of which, happy Halloween, and I hope you have a great day out there. I'll see you in my next video. Swatch you later. Bye!